This is going to be a quick video walkthrough of Google Campaign Manager 360. We're a small digital advertising agency, and we use Google Campaign Manager for 5 main reasons. First off is the ability to manage creative switches and run schedules across multiple campaigns. Third-party confirmation that media is even delivering across different channels, different vendors, different platforms, things like that. Simplified workflow, as well as direct connections to other Google tools that we use a lot, such as Google Tag Manager and Google Analytics 4. The other benefit that we see in Campaign Manager 360 is there are brand safety settings. A lot of our clients can be pretty particular about where their ads are showing, and Campaign Manager does offer some settings to control whether the impression is actually delivered if it indicates that the content that's being delivered next to is maybe something we don't want an ad placed on. So we'll look through all that. Okay, starting here is the home screen that we come into. It's all the advertisers that are set up in the system. I have our advertisers hidden, but what we're gonna do is we're gonna start with new here so we can see how quick and easy this is to set up. Let's just call this Team Liberty Test. And we don't have an advertiser group, although you can group multiple advertisers into a group. Advertiser vertical, you can use this for benchmarking. I'm not going to set anything here for this. There's some billing information there. Within the advertiser, you can also set basic UTMs, so certain tracking for your analytics that will then be universal across the advertiser itself. We generally don't set it at the advertiser level. We set it at the campaign level. We'll look at that next. There's also some other things in here that can be used: creative groups, associations, dynamic targeting keys. That's more advanced topics that are beyond the scope of what we're talking about here. But we will circle back on that and do a video about each of those items. All right, so save our advertiser. That will then create it on our main page here. And then we can go into creatives. And this is where we are able to upload creatives at an advertiser level, so they can be used across multiple campaigns. This is how we generally do it. You can upload them directly to the campaign, but then if you're going to be using it in multiple campaigns, then you have to upload it multiple times. So this is usually the most universal way to do it. What I'm going to do today is I'm going to upload a series of HTML5 display ads. So these are rich media dynamic ads. What I'm going to do is I'm going to upload them as a bulk set. So I'm going to click on new. I'm going to come down to batch uploads. You can see in here you can upload any number of different types of creative. In this case, I'm going to batch upload. I am going to be uploading the creative directly, so not from URLs of third parties, but I actually have the file sitting on our server. These are HTML5 files or ads. They do arrive in a zip file that includes the JavaScript, the images, the HTML that's needed to run the ad. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select all of these, open these up. It's going to load them all into the system. Okay. Now what it's going to show me is all my different sizes. We can see the type, so to make sure it received it all correctly. One thing to note here, it says optional, upload a backup image. So what that means is that, let's say, for example, the animation fails or something in the JavaScript of the HTML5 ad doesn't work, there is a backup image that can be used as well. These files that we're uploading do actually have those in there, but they're not always detected by Google Campaign Manager. So best thing to do is do a physical check to make sure that the file is in fact available. I will show you what that looks like. Okay, within this first creative set here, so we've got animated hello set 120 by 600. When I open up the zip file, you can see these are all the different things that are in here. So these are images that are part of it. This is the JavaScript file. There's another image, and then there's the fallback image. So what this is basically a static of the ad that will show when if the animation fails. What you can do is you can open up this HTML file here to see if you can find it, just to make sure it is referenced. It's often down at the bottom in the no script. So we can see right here, we do have that fallback image JPEG referenced in the main file. So that tells us that it will in fact load if it needs to. Okay, so everything looks good. All of our ads were uploaded. Sometimes you might get errors up here. If that's the case, you have to go back and look at the files, make sure they're in the right format, make sure they're available on the server, things like that. And then let's go to next. Save. Okay, it says our creatives are saved. So now we can see them all in our creatives folder for our advertiser here. If we want to see what they look like, we can click on preview here and it will pop it up in a new window to see that, but we can see everything in here loaded just fine. All the dimensions are correct. Aspect ratios when it was created. If there was a modification, there hasn't been since we just uploaded them. Okay, so now everything is here, so this is good. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to create a campaign so that we can utilize these. So let's go into campaigns. We don't have any yet, so I'm going to click new, and then let's call this test display HTML5. Okay, it's active. Next thing we want to do is make sure we set the schedule here. These are really important that you set your end date is most important. If you have an end date, what'll happen is if the end date is set here, anything under it will shut off on that time. So you can set end dates for creatives, placements, sites, things like that. But this should be your overriding schedule. If anything is set to run beyond this, it will not run beyond it. So let's just leave it set to about a month right now. That's good enough. The other thing that we're going to do in Campaign Manager is we're going to set our landing pages. So we just uploaded HTML5 files, which do include a click tag. So there is a landing page that's built into those files. However, what we want to do is make sure that we also have it here. The nice thing also is that as you build out more campaigns, you can just select the landing page. Oftentimes, you've only got a defined set of pages you're going to send traffic to. So if you keep this list nice and clean, you have them all here, you can just select them and you're good to go. So we're going to add a new landing page. We're just going to call this it's going to be the home page for now. Okay, that's it. Just call it home. All right, so that's going to give us our landing page for this campaign. It's also going to create it at the advertiser level. Okay, billing, we don't need to worry about. That's set as the overall account. Landing page URL suffix. So this is where we are able to create the UTMs for the campaign. So let's just make this simple. UTM source, we're just going to call it, just say Yahoo. That's the primary DSP we use. So do that, UTM campaign equals, we call this test. And then you can also down here add in directly, and then you can let's just do this, UTM content. Okay, all right, and then what you can do from here is select a custom string, which can be dynamically populated by something from your campaign or from your ad. So that could be the ad ID, it could be the advertiser, campaign, creative, something else that you set up, the placement, the site, or any number of things that you want to create. So there's a lot of flexibility there. Okay, so we're all set there. Let's just make this ad ID, so we know which creative was delivered. Okay, all right, the next one here is verification. So we always select this. This allows us to, an overall level, block anything that's considered a sensitive category. All these things are listed here. Anything that's in the, deemed mature. And then we do have different lists that we run in the DSP for allowing or disallowing certain sites. And then, of course, we are only running US campaigns. So we want to block everything outside of the US. We do have all these settings at the account level. So that's why they're pulling in automatically. We just have to check the box. These down here are other things that can be used within a campaign. We're not going to talk about those today. There's lots more to talk about there. One thing I would note is that floodlight conversion windows. Floodlight is basically the tracking tags that are used by Google Campaign Manager. You can set these here. We set them at the account level, but they can be overridden. They can be changed for particular campaigns as needed. Okay, all right, so our campaign is now set up. So I'm going to save that. All right, so now in order to actually use this campaign, we have to create placements, creatives, ads, things like that. So the next thing that we need to do here is we're going to create a new placement. And we can set up any number of sites. We're going to use Yahoo DSP for this one, since this is where we're going to end up running this creative to begin with. So I'm going to select that site, but you can create as many as you want. And then you can name this. So let's do this. We're going to just call this one, let's do HTML 5 120 600. It's going to be active. It is going to be a display. We need to change the dimensions here to find the correct one. Serving platform is Yahoo DSP. This is important that you select this for whatever you're running. They're pretty much all here. But selecting that is important because that helps the tags generate correctly. It helps better identify and reporting where everything's running. So we've got testing start, which you can set before your actual creative start date. All that really does, though, is any impressions that happen between those two are not counted in reporting. So if your campaign's live in the DSP, it doesn't mean the ad's not going to show. It just means that Campaign Manager is not going to include any impressions for that time period in any of the reporting. So making sure your placement, end date, start date are all set. You have a cost structure here. Maybe you're using a cap cost, maybe not. In here is a lot of other things that you can override. The main ones, we don't usually mess with any of that unless we have a good reason to. The nice thing about Campaign Manager is we can set most of our choices and most of our decisions to begin with. And then what we'll end up with is a much more simplified workflow. That's what I was mentioning earlier, is we just don't have to keep redoing things that we use every single time. Okay, so we created a placement. The other item that we need to do is we need to import our creative. So what we're going to do here, we got to go new here. So where you can create placements, ads, you can bring in creative projects from outside, creative, batch upload, which is when we talked earlier about if you want to batch upload creative to a campaign, this is how you do it. What we're going to do today, though, is we're going to do add from Advertiser because we already uploaded those. So if we do that, now we can select all the ones we want to bring in. We can add those, and this will bring them into our campaign. Okay. All right. So what this did for us is this created the ad. So we created this placement, if you recall. When we brought this in, what it did was it matched up the creative that we brought in to the default ad. So what Campaign Manager will create is a default ad, which is basically what will show if it doesn't, if everything else fails. So the use case there is, let's say you've got this placement 120 by 600 and you're running a number of different creative versions underneath it. So let's say you set a rotation schedule where you've got 3 different ad creatives running. The default is something that should always be there so that it will show in case everything else fails. So now we've got, it automatically assign that one. Anytime we create a placement, it's going to assign a default ad. The next thing we need to do, though, is we need to create an actual ad. So I'm going to go here. These are going to be rich media display banners. So I'm going to select that. It is going to be, what's our name here? Okay, hello. Set 120 by 600. Okay. Check all that. All that looks good. We want to make sure we select this again. And then we're going to add an asset. So since the assets are already in here, let's not do that. We're going to hold on that for now because I'm going to show you how to assign it. Okay, what you'll notice is that the default ads were created for every size. They're showing as inactive because they're not assigned to a placement. So everything needs to be assigned to a placement and it needs to be activated. So what we would do is we would select, create a placement for each of these and then assign it. So let's look at how to do that. Just to make things simple, let's click in here. I'm going to wait for that to load and then I'm going to click in there. Refresh. Okay, I'm just going to copy this and I'm going to do a new placement under the same site. This will be the 160. Change this to 160. Everything looks good there. All right, let's save that. Okay, and then automatically assign that default ad. So we can go through and do each of these. So as this is currently set up, this will be the ad that runs if there's nothing else in there. So conceivably we could be done there, not add in anything else. But let's say we want to add in another creative. So what we can do is we can add another, say another display ad. Okay, we're going to add, let's do a standard ad and then a creative assignment. We can come in here and assign this creative. So we're going to make that the 120. Got to make sure that I name it. So this is going to be hello set 1. And that is the 120x600. Okay, this will be an active ad. I'm going to change that there. Those are good. So hard cutoff I'm going to select because I need it to stop serving when it hits the end date. Not sure why that's even an option, but it is. Other things we can look at here, impression ratios. So this is where you can set your basically your rotation schedule. Let's say you want this one to show twice to the other one showing once, and you can make this one a 2, that one a 1. And then it'll deliver this ad twice as often as the other one. You can also set frequency caps in here. There are tool tips here and there. Sometimes they're not real clear, but you can set the number of of ads you want to limit it to for the time period, and then the whether it's minutes, however many minutes, how many hours, days, things like that. Creative assignment. So we selected the 120 by 600. That we did it this way because we've already imported these into the campaign from the advertiser, so we don't want to go back and import them again. Placement assignment in here, we can assign this one to, because the aspect ratio was selected, the size of the ad, it only gives us one choice. Within the ad here, this is another thing. It's going to inherit the UTMs and the URL parameters that we set at the campaign level. If we wanted to override those, we can do that here. So let's say in a particular ad You want to have something different that differentiates. That's why we use the dynamic. You don't have to set this, but in some cases you may need to. All right, so now I'm going to save that. And it is going to create another ad under here. So this is basically our real ad, and this is our default ad. So in this case, the creative is the same, and that's okay. But let's say you want to create another one that has set 2, set 3, all within the same size, because you want to keep the sizes together. Then what will happen is if all fails, this is going to be the one that shows. Oftentimes we'll just use something that's purely evergreen and has nothing to do with any of the sets that are showing. That way your metrics stay more consistent. Okay, some other things to look at here. We're not going to go through assigning all the rest of these. Note that I'm getting an error here because it's saying no active default ad assigned to placement. There is one, but it is set to inactive. So if I make that active, then that error is going to go away. Okay, there we go. Okay, so some things to look at within this screen. What you'll see when your campaign is running, you'll start to see the impressions over the last 30 days, the impressions over the last 24 hours, clicks, etc. there. This is not the reporting interface. This just tells you that it's running. So this is when I mentioned as one of our main benefits we see in using Campaign Manager is confirming that things are actually running. When you've got different platforms to look into and things like that, it's much, much easier just to sit here and scroll through and make sure that you're getting clicks, impressions within the last 24 hours if something should be running. Note here that also there are some details on the ad. So the start date, the end date, which we set, the type, so the placement, the default, what type of ad it is, those things, the asset type is identified. The thing that is also nice about this is that we can come into here and let's say we want to change the end dates on these. So I can select those, I can click edit multiple, come here and I can choose end date, and then I could set that to something different. So let's say I don't want those running all the way to 7:05. I want those to stop at the end of June, or I want to change the landing page, things like that. Any of these things can be changed, including names. Make that update, and then what will happen is that will be reflected right there. So now I've got these ending on 6:30. The placement runs to 7:05. So let's say you've got a placement that starts up on 7:01 and runs through 7:05, then that would be a separate ad within this placement for this size that then starts on 7:01 and then runs through the end of the placement date. So note that the placement date is equal to the end of the campaign date. Once you set your campaign date, it's automatically going to default everything to ending on that date. So if let's say you need to extend a campaign, extend a placement, change a creative schedule, you need to make sure that all these things are set up so that they're not shutting each other off, this being the main one here. Okay, so that is the basics of creating an advertiser, creating a campaign, importing creative, creating ads, placements, and then doing bulk edits to these elements. We will do more videos on more specific, more advanced topics within Campaign Manager, but this is pretty much all you need to do to get started.